Welcome again. It's Stephen. So I'm going to continue from yesterday's stream, where I was talking about clouds of dual choir angels that Saint Ignatius saw in a dream. Sometime maybe I don't know 70 or 80 CE, and also talking about the cherubim that are on the ark of the covenant, and these two cherubim are facing each other, and between the cherubim, the Spirit of God, or Jesus Christ, or however you envision it, I suppose, will speak, or God will speak, not Jesus. Well, God will speak, and so an incarnation in the deep into the early scriptures, so long before Jesus appears on the scene. And I've been pondering this physics, and a lot of the physics has to do with this quantum and how do things arise from the quantum, and a quantum. A quantum event is the result of a coexistence of multiple states at once, and so there's probabilities associated to the possible outcomes of the quantum event, and the event occurring, the quantum state is in all of these states at the same time. So the combination is the state. So these different probabilities, there could be many, right? So these different probabilities, and then for our universe, the quantum somehow, in a way that's not, the mechanics of which is not known, one of those states is chosen, and it appears to us for all the world as though that were inevitable. So the probabilities go away, and the state that happens as the event occurs becomes 100% probable from our point of view, and so life goes on in a non-probabilistic way, but in a certain way. So we have a timeline, and the timeline is robust, right? We can predict what's going to happen next. You drop a book from 4 feet, and not long after, the book will be resting on whatever is underneath it, the floor that's underneath it. So I like the idea of the two choirs of angels, right? So you can think of these as the quantum probabilities before a quantum event chooses for our physical world the path out of all the probabilities that it will take. And I like the idea of two of them, and for a reason that'll become apparent in the next little bit here that I'm doing. So then we have the two cherubim, where the ineffable can speak. So where you can think of where the probabilities of the possible become the singular actual. So I think in pretty nice mimic of a quantum event, when these cherubim have something to do with sorting out, with the mechanics of sorting out which of the possible ways the decision could be made by God is actually decided. So what will God say out of all the infinite possibilities, out of all the choirs of angels that are possible? Which singer will sing? That's where I'm going with this, from Saint Ignatius's choirs to these cherubim. So one way you can think of a quantum event. So if you think of a generative, like a creational quantum event, you have energy, and in the quantum world, energy is abundant because the background energy of the quantum world is a positive energy value. We think of things at rest as having no energy, but in the quantum world, rest has energy. So And that energy has probabilities as to how great that energy is. So typically that energy is very, very low. Nothing really can happen. And the by far the most probable things that can occur because of that energy is nothing. Nothing can occur. But occasionally, through a dice roll, a very improbable dice roll, through a very low probability event, that energy of the quantum is large enough to create something. All right, so let's say we're going to create a very non-ambitious thing. We're going to create an electron and positron pair. So very small creational event, and that can happen by a fluctuation in the quantum background energy that is typically very low, but every now and then, because of the right probability, out comes enough energy, and the energy can then converts into pairs of particles, and it converts into pairs of particle-antiparticle. So you get an electron-positron that are being created, and typically what will happen is those will recombine and form the energy that was originally there, and then all sorts of things can happen. You know, all kinds of things can happen, but generally what happens is not very much. There's this idea that in physics, that if you let's say you have the background energy fluctuates, and it's high enough that this very unlikely but probabilistic event occurs, and you have the energy created that's high enough to be to convert into an electron-positron pair. And let's suppose that occurs right at the event horizon of a black hole. So this is a pretty special case, but it's a very interesting case, because if that happens, you can imagine that on one side of the event horizon on a black hole, nothing can escape it. So if you are outside the event horizon, you have a chance. If you're inside the event horizon, you are lost to observation. So you are effectively don't exist. So let's say we have a fluctuation in the background energy right at the event horizon of a black hole. The electron-positron pair are created. The electron is on the outside of the event horizon, and the positron is just inside the event horizon. And so you can imagine that electron scoots out into the universe that we know. And looking for all the world, like a quantum choice was made. You know, you now have gone from an infinite possibility quantum background, and suddenly you have an electron scooting along, coming out of the black hole, and the positron getting buried into it, and through various interactions of that electron with things that are going on in this outside world that we inhabit, the electron acquires properties that make it look like part of our universe, that make it look like, I think it's called Hawking radiation. You know, this Hawking radiation this is one of the ideas for what's going on with the Hawking radiation. So that's an interesting thing. So now imagine the cherubim. Imagine the cherubim on the ark as you know, the event horizon is between the cherubim, and the two cherubim are representing a particle and an antiparticle, or however you want to, you know, So and the generative space is the space between, and the generative space of the creational ability of God is in between these. And I like to think of that all those possibilities of the background energy of the quantum are existing as these angelic choirs. And the reason there's two is because is to sort of represent all the possible particles, all the possible antiparticles. So we have in this choir two choirs. What Ignatius set up in his churches was these two choirs. They would sit at opposite sides of the room and in the church, and they would sing back and forth. It's called anti-phonal. So you have a phonal choir and you have an anti-phonal choir, and if you choose a single probability out from that cloud of possible particle and antiparticle, phonal and antiphonal, you get two singers represented by the cherubim, and one of them becomes the voice of God, effectively. So there are many ideas in Christianity, I think one of the fundamental ideas in Christianity is that the angels are revealing revelation to us. They are the vehicle by which we see the revelation. So the Spirit of God or Jesus are speaking between the two cherubim, and that revelation is brought to us via an angelic presence. This is a theology. This is, I think, solid. I think this is a typical way we think of angels as acting, or perhaps we used to. I read a lot of the early church, so maybe before 1000 AD, it was typically thought that angels were bringing you the revelations. And so you can see when I started reading these just in the last couple of days, and learned about the choirs of Ignatius and about how he died with one lion on his neck upside up and one lion on his ankle upside down, the particle, antiparticle, and if you think of the particle represented on the one side by the clergy, and the antiparticle, the anti-lion, the lion and the anti-lion represented by the state, and which will eventually become the state of Saint Ignatius. Will he die a death of the state and enter non-existence inside the event horizon of the black hole, or will he die by the lion of the anti-lion, or the lion, whichever you've chosen to do, and that represents the clergy, and will he continue to exist in heaven? So that's an interesting thing. I think it's an interesting thing. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks.